If you are interested in protecting your yields from, well, basically the single most devastating biological threat in the field today, you really need to stay and listen.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we are talking about massive plantation-destroying losses here, but I promise if you stick around until the very end, we are going to reveal some of the most surprising, unconventional field tactics out there, like what a specific everyday intercrop can actually do to defend your blocks.
Yeah, that intercrop data is fascinating.
Welcome to this podcast episode brought to you by AGS Agriculture Global Solutions, your partner for better farming practices.
It is genuinely great to be here to focus on this. I mean, the stakes really could not be higher for plantation longevity right now.
Absolutely. Now, for those of you listening, you know we have recently presented several podcast episodes on Ganoderma disease and oil palm, but we would like to discuss this very recent article now. It's a review article summarizing the latest information on this devastating disease of oil palm.
Right, and it's incredibly new.
Yeah, this paper was published in 2026, so it's fresh off the presses, and we are cutting through all the academic noise to bring you the reality of what is actually working right now in the field.
It is really important to note the origin of this data. So this 2026 study was conducted and published in Indonesia.
Right.
However, let's be absolutely clear here, this pathogen does not respect borders. Not at all. The operational blueprint detailed in this research is directly and highly relevant to Malaysian plantations.
For sure.
The environmental pressures, the biological mechanisms of the fungus, and, well, the management realities are identical for Malaysian smallholders and estates alike.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We are talking about basal stem rot, BSR. It is essentially the heavyweight champion of plantation diseases. And the harsh reality presented in this 2026 study is probably going to ruffle some feathers.
Oh, it definitely will.
Because despite decades of research, millions of dollars in funding, endless trials, there is no silver bullet. There's just no magic cure for BSR.
That is the pivotal realization here. And what's really fascinating is that the gap between the research lab and field effectiveness, well, it's not a technical failure. No, we have the science. We understand the biology perfectly well. The failure is entirely an operational one.
Right, it's execution.
Exactly. The study actually features a quote from a highly experienced field practitioner that really anchors this entire discussion. They state, Ganoderma is defeated by discipline. Humans are defeated by laziness.
Wow. Ganoderma is defeated by discipline. Humans are defeated by laziness. That hits hard.
It really forces you to look in the mirror, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
Because, it makes me think of BSR not like a broken bone where you just go in, apply a quick surgical fix, and you are immediately cured. It's not like that at all.
Right. It's not a one-and-done thing.
Exactly. BSR is much more like a chronic health condition like, say, heart disease or diabetes. You don't cure those with one magical pill.
No, you manage them.
Right. You manage them through strict daily lifestyle discipline.
Yeah.
It's about what you do every single day that keeps the system functioning.
That is a perfect analogy. The lifestyle management of a plantation relies entirely on your sanitation and monitoring protocols. We have to fundamentally shift the plantation mindset.
Yeah, we have to stop waiting to be rescued.
Precisely. You have to start waiting for a chemical fungicide or some biological miracle to save your infected blocks. Relying on a magic cure while neglecting daily field hygiene is a guaranteed path to escalating disease severity.
And just watching your yield in tons per hectare completely collapse.
Exactly. We need to start treating BSR management as a rigorous daily operational discipline.
Quick note, tell us in the comments what oil palm topics you want next so we make episodes on what matters to you. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you are not subscribed yet. Give this episode a like and write a comment. This helps our YouTube channel so we continue transforming oil palm scientific articles into language that is easy to understand and digest.
So let's look at the cornerstone of this daily discipline, and that is physical sanitation.
Yeah.
According to the data, sanitation is the non-negotiable foundation of effective control. It requires the systematic felling of suspected or confirmed positive palms, complete stump removal, and the destruction of infected material without delay.
Okay, I have to push back here for a second.
Sure.
Because the economics and the sheer labor involved in these recommended protocols are staggering. I mean, you were telling a field manager or a smallholder to pull their team off harvesting, to fell a palm, chisel out the tissue, excavate the roots, and then chop up the wood.
Yes.
Is it truly necessary to go to such extreme lengths just to get rid of a fungus? I mean, it sounds like we are asking field teams to do cabinet making in the middle of a plantation. Doesn't that cost more in labor than the sick tree is even worth?
I completely understand the resistance. I really do. It is the most common objection I hear in the field. But yes, it is absolutely necessary.
Even with the high labor cost.
Even then, if you calculate the labor cost against the value of one sick tree, yeah, it seems like a loss. But you aren't saving one tree. You are saving the next 20 years of production for that entire area.
Ah, okay. That's a different perspective.
And the reason comes down to a biological concept called soil memory. This fungus, Ganoderma boninense, is incredibly resilient. It actually survives in woody debris beneath the soil surface for 5 to 10 years.
Wait, 5 to 10 years?
Yes, up to a decade.
So if you leave a stump or, even sizable root fragments down there, they're essentially acting as a subterranean bunker for the fungus.
Exactly. The vegetative part of the fungus, which is known as the mycelium, it's basically the fungal root system. It retreats into that wood. It goes completely dormant and it just waits.
That's terrifying.
It is. Replanting in that exact same spot or even leaving large chunks of wood nearby, it virtually guarantees reinfection of your new generation of palms. The soil remembers the disease because the physical inoculum is literally still sitting there in the ground.
5 to 10 years of just waiting in the dark. Wow. So how do we actually pull this off without going bankrupt on labor costs? How do we erase that soil memory mechanically?
Well, it takes precision. First, you systematically fell any suspect or confirmed palms. Then, you chisel away all the decayed tissue until you expose completely sound, healthy wood.
Right.
Second, you must excavate the root system to a depth of 10 centimeters.
Now, why exactly 10 centimeters? Is there magic in that number?
It's not magic, it's anatomy. That specific depth removes the primary infection bowl, where the absolute highest concentration of fungal mass resides.
Okay, so that's the core.
Exactly. If you leave that dense core in the ground, you are leaving a biological time bomb.
Got it. And what about the trunk and the wood itself? What do we do with all that material?
This is where the extreme detail really matters. You have to chip the remaining wood into very small pieces. Specifically, less than 5 cubic centimeters.
Less than 5 cubic centimeters. Again, why so small? I mean, what happens if a worker just chops it into 10 or 15 centimeter chunks to save a little time?
If the chunks are too large, the inside of the wood stays dark and humid, and that is exactly the microclimate the fungus needs to survive.
Ah, so it just hides in the middle of the chunk.
Precisely. But at 5 cubic centimeters or less, the piece is small enough that the sun can completely penetrate it. You scatter those tiny chips, and the intense tropical heat bakes them rapidly.
So the sun does the work.
Yes. The sun evaporates the internal moisture, physically starving the fungus and destroying it. For the larger sections of the trunk that simply cannot be chipped that small, well, you must remove them entirely from the block, usually to a roadside disposal site.
So you are mechanically stripping the fungus of its armor
Yeah.
and letting the sun do the actual killing. I like that. It's smart. And what happens when it is time to replant that sanitized area?
You have two scientifically validated options here. Either you relocate your new planting holes 3 to 5 meters away from the old disease center to avoid that residual root zone entirely.
Okay, so just physically move away from the memory.
Right. Or, if you absolutely must plant in the same geometry, you leave that sanitized area fallow for 12 to 24 months. That allows any remaining microscopic fungal matter to naturally die off without a host to feed on.
Okay, so relocate 3 to 5 meters or fallow for 12 to 24 months. So we essentially sterilize this soil memory, but that clean slate is completely useless if we just dump the pathogen right back in through bad soil management.
Exactly.
And that brings up a massive point of confusion I see in the field regarding biologicals. I mean, I see plantations applying expensive biological controls, dumping them into the soil, and they are still seeing high BSR infection rates.
Oh, all the time.
Why is that happening if these products are scientifically proven to work?
Well, this raises an important question about how we view agricultural inputs. Biologicals are not magic shields. The study makes it abundantly clear biological agents are supplements, not replacements.
Right.
They only work if thorough physical sanitation has already removed the primary inoculum source.
It is like sending a dozen soldiers to fight an entrenched army of thousands. You have to clear the battlefield first,
That's
right?
a great way to put it.
Because if you introduce beneficial microbes into a soil environment that is still packed with massive chunks of infected, rotting wood, the Ganoderma is already way too established.
Precisely. The biologicals cannot colonize effectively or compete against a massive, pre-existing fungal network. The protocol here is to apply your biological agents like 25 grams of arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, AMF, per plant at the planting stage, but only after the area has been rigorously sanitized.
So the soil has to be clean first.
Yeah.
How does AMF actually protect the tree once it's in clean soil, though?
When AMF is applied to clean soil, it colonizes the roots and literally enhances the root system architecture. It creates a physical and chemical symbiotic barrier around the root surface.
Like a shield.
Exactly. And that barrier significantly suppresses future BSR attacks by blocking the pathogen from entering.
That makes perfect sense. And what about organic matter? A lot of plantations use empty fruit bunches, TKKS, to build up the soil structure and retain moisture.
Yes, and empty fruit bunches, TKKS, are highly beneficial, but only if managed correctly. You must use only mature, composted TKKS.
How mature are we talking?
It needs to be aged for a minimum of 8 to 12 weeks with regular turning to aerate it. If you apply raw, immature TKKS directly to the field, it decomposes too rapidly and creates waterlogged anaerobic conditions.
Wait, anaerobic just means lacking oxygen, right? So when the soil is waterlogged, it chokes out the air. Let me guess. Ganoderma loves an oxygen-deprived environment.
It absolutely thrives in it.
Yeah.
While your beneficial aerobic microbes, the ones that actually need oxygen, are suffocating and dying off, the hardy pathogen survives and spreads.
Wow.
And this ties directly into drainage. You have to optimize your field drainage. Ensuring the soil doesn't become waterlogged suppresses fungal proliferation. The study notes that improved drainage alone can reduce disease incidence significantly compared to poorly drained anaerobic blocks.
By the way, because we were talking so much about soil, health, compost, and biological inputs, I should mention that soil testing for acidity and nutrient content is absolutely essential here.
Yes.
Definitely.
You cannot optimize your soil microbiome if your pH is completely out of balance. And I should mention leaf testing, too, to ensure your palms are actually receiving the right nutrition to maintain their resilience against these pathogens.
Absolutely. A highly resilient, well-nourished palm will always withstand environmental stress better. But, even a perfectly nourished palm is vulnerable if we keep handing the disease a free ride.
Which is the perfect transition to a part of the study that genuinely blew my mind. Because while the soil and the roots are the primary battleground, there is an invisible vector moving the disease right above ground from block to block, and that vector is us.
Yes. Human-mediated vector transmission. The review analyzed the deployment of state-of-the-art unmanned aerial vehicles, UAV, and multispectral imaging.
These are the drones flying over the canopy, right?
Correct. Now, these drones are fantastic for identifying large-scale, moderate to severe infections across hundreds of hectares. They read the thermal canopy stress and chlorophyll degradation.
Right.
But they struggle heavily with early-stage detection.
Right, because if the drones are only seeing canopy stress, by the time the leaves are actually wilting and showing up on a thermal camera, the internal decay at the base of the trunk is probably already massive.
Exactly.
The tree is already a giant source of infection before the drone even flags it.
Exactly. But the drones did reveal an incredibly vital pattern. When researchers map these infections spatially, they aren't just seeing random root-to-root spread in a perfect circle. Surprisingly, the disease often clusters linearly, right along worker movement pathways.
Oh, wow. I have an analogy for this. Imagine a highly skilled surgeon moving from a patient with a severe contagious infection directly to a healthy patient and performing surgery without washing their hands or changing their scalpel.
Yeah, that would be terrible.
We would call that massive medical malpractice. But that is exactly what is happening in the plantation. Workers are moving block to block, and their tools are actively spreading the pathogen.
That is exactly what the data suggests. A worker harvests from a tree heavily infected with BSR. The cutting tool makes direct physical contact with the fungal spores or the mycelium inside the tissue.
Right.
Then they walk down the pathway and harvest a perfectly healthy tree. We are mechanically inoculating our own plantations with every swing of the tool.
So how do we stop this malpractice? Because we obviously still have to harvest the bunches. We can't just stop working.
No, we can't. It requires standard operating procedures that must be ruthlessly enforced by supervisors.
Okay, what are the steps?
First, clean footwear at block entry points. Second, segregate your equipment. Tools used in a known infected block should never, ever cross over into a healthy block.
Strict quarantine for tools.
Yes. And third, you must disinfect all tools immediately after contact with an affected tree.
What are we disinfecting them with? Are we using bleach?
A 1% sodium hypochlorite solution, or 70% ethanol, sprayed directly on the cutting tools is highly effective.
And why those specific chemicals?
Because at those concentrations, the ethanol or hypochlorite instantly denatures the proteins and shatters the cellular walls of the fungal spores on contact. It neutralizes the biological threat on the steel.
So just a simple spray bottle of 70% ethanol on the worker's belt, that takes what, 5 seconds?
5 seconds of discipline to prevent 5 to 10 years of yield loss and thousands of dollars in damages.
Amazing. Now, I promised the listeners at the very beginning that we would reveal a surprising, unconventional field tactic. We talked about sanitation, we talked about soil, we talked about tool hygiene, but the 2026 study highlighted a specific, everyday intercrop that actually acts as a weapon against BSR.
Yes, mixed cropping with taro plants.
Taro.
Yes, taro. This is a fascinating ecological integration. The researchers found that intercropping oil palm with taro alters the soil microbiome in a way that is highly antagonistic to Ganoderma.
Walk us through the mechanism here. How exactly does a leafy root vegetable fight off a timber-destroying fungus?
It all comes down to root exudates. The taro roots release specific carbon compounds into the surrounding soil. This alters the rhizosphere chemistry.
Wait, let's unpack that word. When you say rhizosphere chemistry, you're just talking about the microscopic environment of soil and moisture directly touching the plant's roots, right?
Precisely. The chemical environment right around the roots changes. This shift selectively feeds and multiplies specific bacterial communities, like Pseudomonas, that are natural enemies of the fungus.
That's wild.
And the data shows that the presence of taro actually accelerates the decomposition of Ganoderma-infected wood in the soil by an astonishing 44 to 84%.
Wait, it speeds up the rotting of the bad wood?
Yes, it favors the wood-decomposing microbes that outcompete the pathogen, and more importantly, it drastically reduces root necrosis in the oil palms.
And root necrosis is just the physical rotting and death of the root tissue.
Exactly. The taro protects the oil palm roots from dying by outcompeting the Ganoderma in the soil space and inhibiting the fungal spores from ever germinating.
So planting taro essentially acts like a biological catalyst that eats the infected wood faster than the fungus can spread from it.
Yes.
That is incredible. It is using nature's own chemistry set to clean up the soil memory.
It is a brilliant example of ecological management, but again, to tie it all back, it must be combined with the discipline of physical sanitation and tool hygiene.
Right. No silver bullets.
Exactly. If workers are still hacking into sick trees and then cutting healthy ones, all the taro in the world won't save the block. There are no standalone solutions here.
Okay, let's bring this all together. What is the wrap-up? What is the goal for tomorrow? If you are listening to this on your way to the plantation, here are 1 or 2 specific actions you can take immediately to protect your tons per hectare. First, stop by the supply store and buy some 70% ethanol and spray bottles. Implement tool sterilization for your harvesting teams today. It is cheap, it is fast, and it stops mechanical spread dead in its tracks.
Great point.
Second, go check the aging timeline of your TKKS compost. If it hasn't been turning for at least 8 to 12 weeks, do not let it near your palms.
Those are perfect, immediate steps. It shifts the power back to the operator and replaces laziness with operational discipline.
And I want to leave you all with a final provocative thought.
Uh-huh.
We spend so much time obsessing over standardizing human labor. But look at the trajectory of the technology we discussed today. If drones can already track thermal stress from the sky, and plants like taro can actively fight the fungus in the soil, how far are we from a future where AI sensors buried in the soil automatically detect the chemical signature of Ganoderma?
That would change everything.
Imagine those sensors triggering biological defenses before human eyes ever even see a sick palm. The tools are evolving incredibly fast, but until that day arrives, your boots on the ground and your daily discipline are the absolute best sensors you have.
You cannot buy discipline, but it pays the highest dividends. And speaking of the future of farming and maximizing your returns, we highly encourage you to register on cropdrive.ai.
Yes. The innovative artificial intelligence, AI, on that platform guides your fertilization and soil health step by step. Plus, their virtual assistant, Palmyra, answers your specific field questions step by step.
It's a fantastic tool.
It really is. It was built by an international team specifically for Malaysian smallholders, making it unique worldwide. And it costs a tiny fraction of what a traditional consultant would charge. It even helps you interpret those lab soil or leaf results we mentioned earlier. Join the hundreds of Malaysian smallholders already using cropdrive to raise their income and cut costs.
Remember to visit our AI farming assistant at cropdrive.ai to learn more on how to increase your oil palm yields and incomes. Thanks for listening.